Here we go.
All right, here we are.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for jumping in, Paul. How you doing, sir?
Good, good. How are you, Kevin?
Oh, living the dream. It's a busy night, man. It's a busy night. I just want to say thank you to everyone who jumped in so far. You could be on any one of like 15 channels talking about a SpongeBob claw machine, but you chose to come hang out with us. So, hats off to all you guys right off the bat. I think we're going to have a lot of really cool information to share. I think everyone and their cousin has asked for an iconic arcade update. It's coming. It's here. Live in the flesh product for people to see. So that's the teaser for the end. But Paul, why don't you kick us off here?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a fun night. Like you said, there's a lot of channels going live with a lot of information. It's been a crazy week already. It's getting nuts as it gets closer to the holidays. So this is an exciting time. I wanted to start off by just kind of acknowledging the elephant in the room. Obviously, Kevin, you represent Spreetail and everything that they do. Yep. I'm kind of more representing the community. I have no financial or other ties to any business or entity other than myself. But just so we're all clear, this channel is not supported by any company or brand. It is co-hosted by an employee of a retailer who sells some of the products that may be featured or discussed in our episodes. We strive to provide honest insights and helpful information, but please note there may be a commercial interest in certain items mentioned. Product discussions may include affiliate links, promotional content, or personal recommendations, and viewers are encouraged to conduct their own research before making any purchase decisions. All opinions expressed are our own unless otherwise stated. And if you're a lawyer, I hope I just made you happy. So there you go.
That is the most official way to say what everybody already knew. Paul, thank you. Thank
Oh my gosh.
for giving the fans that legal disclaimer. So yeah, let's jump through the introduction. So Paul, we've all run into you online, but for the people who don't know, kind of give us the 411. What's your claim to fame?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think a lot of people do know me. I post a heck of a lot. I probably am most known, though, for my time on Reddit. According to the Reddit stats, I have something close to 10,000 posts now related to the topics that we're talking about. So one time or another, I've pretty much pissed off just about everybody in the community by calling out everyone and everything, including some of the companies that we talk about, some of the products that we talk about. But my goal has always been to get a better product because I am a customer myself, obviously. I just want a better product for myself and for everybody else in this community. So that's my vantage point. Like I've said before, I've not received a penny nor a product sample, no affiliate links, no monetization, nothing from anyone ever on any channel or anything I've ever done. I've not made a penny from this at all.
And you're not going to. I ain't giving you shit,
right.
Paul. Go get a job, brother. I'm not giving you any money for
this. This is the worst business venture I've ever been part of. But no, I do it completely for the fun, the excitement, and honestly, just because I'm a fan as much as anyone. I love this stuff. I grew up in the arcades. I worked for 4 years at Toys R Us in the video game department when Toys R Us was still a thing. I've owned real machines. I've owned real PCBs. I love everything about this category. I just want to make it better, and I'm as jazzed as everybody else about talking about it endlessly, practically every day and every night. I mean, Kevin, you and I have had conversations. One last week that went 3 hours long. I talked to you more that day than I did my own wife.
It happens. It absolutely happens. That's so funny.
So why don't we just start? Why don't we just get into it? I mean, we've got some stuff happening right away with Basic Fun. And by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, I just posted this. They would prefer that we refer to their products as the Arcade Classics line, just like Arcade 1-Up does from the parent company Tastemakers. So if you ever hear me talking about Arcade Classics, that's who we're talking about. So I'll probably use that from here on out. I might forget a little bit every now and then. But
I was half tempted to make it a drinking game just for the first night, like just between you and me. Like anytime you say basic fun instead of arcade classics, you have to take a shot. But
I'd be
then
pretty
I
drunk
thought
by
about it. I'm
then.
like, that would get out of control probably really quickly
It'd
before.
be bad. I'm trying. I'm trying online, but it's tough. On all the forums, of course, still say basic fun. And somebody
Right.
pointed out today, it was I don't know if it was a video, but they were like, hey, the product itself has basic fun on it. So it's like, okay, yeah, the boxes, whatever, but we'll get there eventually. So, and
Yeah.
if you hear me saying arcade classics, don't confuse it with arcade one up. It is the basic fun product line that we're talking about. So, they've had some interesting things happening recently. Obviously, you've been a huge part of everything happening, mostly behind the scenes. But maybe we should just talk about kind of the hits and the misses. You've had some really good feedback coming in on WrestleFest, for good or bad, and there's been a lot of both. So maybe you can talk about some of the successes that you've seen, and also some of the things that we're still kind of working through.
Yeah. So definitely coming off this launch, I think we can all just be honest that there've been a couple stumbles along the way, and I think we're going to talk about those. But what I've been really excited about, and we're going to get into this pretty specifically, is you never expect perfect execution on day one, but as the person who's buying the product, as the person who's developing a relationship with these brands, what I'm looking for is like, are these going to be quality people who stand by their product, who support it, who listen to the feedback, who try to make it right wherever possible? And then for me as the retailer, if I mess up, do I make it? Do I make it right for the fans? Like it takes a while to build that relationship. And sort of that trust between the people with the money and the people who want to, sell the product, right? So I think that's part of why, Paul, I think you and I wanted to do this,
Yeah.
this sort of channel is that Spreetail, primarily what we do for those of you who don't know, we do distribution, we do the online sales, marketing, and all that. But the space that we're actually in is called an accelerator space. So my job is to not just buy product from a brand and then sell the product, but to learn a brand's marketplace. What are the challenges that a brand would face coming to market if they're new to market? There's competition already. What are those challenges? What do they look like? And how do I help a brand like Basic Fun or Iconic Arcade get into the market and go from 0 to 100 as quickly as possible? That's why it's called an accelerator, right? And I've been on a few shows. I'm sure there's a few folks on here who've seen me do some things, but it seems like the real consistent feedback that I've heard is, we've got people who are showing out some really big bucks on products, right? I mean, whether it's $500 or whether it's $800, $1,000 if you get into the pinball machines, right? Like people are spending a lot of money. And the customer is becoming very discerning. What was acceptable 3 or 4 years ago? People want to see a little bit of a level up now, and there seemed to be a frustration. And in the comments, tell me if I'm right, if I'm over the mark, if I'm way off base. But it sounded like there was a disconnect where people were like, "Hey, I want to buy these products. I want to support these brands, but they're not listening. We keep saying we want X, Y, and Z, or we don't appreciate these things."
Yeah.
And I realized there wasn't really a communication conduit for the customers. So that's why we built Arcade Insiders. And welcome to the inside, because Paul and I aren't the insiders here, right? Everybody who is in this chat right now, everybody who becomes a part of the community that we're going to build, you are the insiders. And we actually already have a really great example of exactly what I'm talking about. Paul, I don't know if you have it queued up, but Paul received a message from a fan, from someone who had purchased the product. Do you have that? Do you have that message handy by chance?
Right here. There you go. It was from John Springer. His name isn't on screen, but I don't think he'd mind me sharing. Really good guy. Reached out. Actually, it was over the weekend. I didn't see it posted because I was out with my family doing some stuff, and he messaged me. I'm not friends with John or anything, but he messaged me, and I didn't have any idea what it was about, but. Basically, he had outlined some of the issues that he ran into with simultaneous A and B press on his counter series product, and that issue affected WrestleFest, Superstars, and Dodgeball, and it was basically just kind of a big problem for him. Now he happens to own, I believe it's either Superstars or WrestleFest, so he kind of knew what was up. But I didn't know about that. Now he had also contacted a few other content creators in the space who I hadn't seen. I know James Hates Everything saw it, I think, first, maybe made a quick video. In any event, John reached out, sent a bunch of screenshots showing the interaction he had with customer service on Amazon. I read through it and I was kind of like, yeah, I hadn't really heard about this because I've been away, but let me see what I can do. I'll shoot a quick email at least over to Basic Fun and just let them know. And I'll let you take it from there, Kevin, because I wasn't purview to any of the behind the scenes stuff. I just know the result, but that's where it started. Just someone contacting me contacting Basic Fun on their behalf.
Yeah, so this was the really impressive part to me. So, this came through. This is like the first thing I'm seeing on like a Monday morning, right? Is Paul is just telling me something else that's wrong. I'm like, thank you, Paul. Thank you for this opportunity to do better, right?
You may have been a little bit inundated with that. I mean, people have no idea behind the scenes how much I'm texting you with, like, did you see this today? What about this thing?
I might have thrown my phone once or twice just because you were interrupting like my Zen state.
That day that you were the one response, I have to share this. You said something like, "Paul, you're a real shit sometimes," something like that.
Yeah, no, we have an honest relationship. What can I say? I think that day it was just like back to back. Like, oh, we heard about this, we heard about this, we heard about this, we heard about this. I'm like, Paul, go away. Just like 5 minutes, go away. But anyway, so we get this in here. Paul sends that over. There's a gentleman over at Basic Fun that I've kind of hooked up with him, and it was within hours. I had a team from Basic Fun like, hey, Kevin, we've got to get on a call right now. We've got to talk about this. We've got to figure out what's going on. And, it's normal to kind of get some email back and forth. People want to do some exploration and stuff. But I had everybody in Basic Fun from sales to customer service to upper leadership to market. I mean, operations, every aspect of the problem itself that would need to be solved was all brought to call within a couple hours, right? So it was actually a little bit overwhelming. I think I made some joke like, hey guys, if you're going to gang up on me, like I would have at least brought another person, like so I wasn't alone. But so we're going through this on. The most important thing, and we disagreed initially. I am biased. You guys know I want to sell product. And the first thing Basic Fun said was, hey, we've got product that we know now is not good. It has a known issue in it. And they were like, you need to take down the product. And I'm like, hey, man, like I'm buying this product. I've got this product inventoried in my warehouse. And by verbatim responses, I don't love that. I don't love taking it down. Like I start going analytical. All right, what's the percentage of people that are calling this out? Is there a is this a major issue, a small issue? And they said, it doesn't matter. It's a known issue. You have to shut it off. I said, done. So we shut off the listing. If you go on any of the marketplaces right now, the WWE countercade is currently not available for sale.
And to your credit, by the way, just taking it down caused its own sort of murmur in the community that you probably hadn't even included in that calculus of pros and cons, because at that time that we were communicating, only 2 people that I knew of, in the regular groups had even said anything about it. That doesn't mean that, obviously it affected all of the product, but only 2 people that I knew of were actually reporting it. So you had to weigh those 2 people versus everything that you just said. Plus, now you've got people saying, why is the product not there? What's going on? And that happened to coincide with the Ultra also being pulled down by Amazon. And I'll let you explain that in a minute, because that's a whole other thing.
Oh my gosh, the conspiracy theories abounded. That will be the most boring story ever. The reviews finally took it down. They stopped selling it. Totally different story, but so anyway, so we were brainstorming, And a lot of times when I'm working with a brand partner, the first place that they go is okay. How do we split the pain? Right. That's usually how they phrase it, something along those lines. How do we partner to solve this problem? And what that means is, how do I pay for the resolution? So that's what I was going into it prepared for, was okay, this is going to cost me a lot of money. Didn't love the idea. That was that, like, I'm not a, like me or hate me. That was my first sort of thought, was like, okay, this is going to cost me a lot of money, and let's see what they come up with.
Yeah.
Completely unsolicited. And this is honest. I'm telling you guys exactly how things are happening behind the scene. Completely unsolicited. Their entire leadership team sitting on that call was like, this is our problem. We're going to fix it. We're going to make it right. Like, Spreetail needs to be able to get this product live as quickly as possible. And we're going to be the ones who make sure that happens. Don't worry about it. We'll put something together. So it's been a multi-prong solution. So I think it came out on some of the Facebooks. It should be available, but Paul, I had shared with you a link. If you had bought this product already, which is the WWE Countercade, Basic Fun has released a link that we can share with you here. And if you download that, it's a WeTransfer, full instructions, and a download. You download to a USB flash drive. Reflash the software on the machine. All the instructions, very comprehensive PDF file that you can review. That's kind of like a quick fix. The part that I was impressed with is they're then going to actually go out to each of the warehouses that currently have this product, and it's going to be their own people who literally open each individual box, flash the software on that product.
That's wild.
Reseal the box, and then there'll be an inspection sticker on the box so that the customer knows, like, hey, this one was inspected. And then they're even going to be doing a secondary sort of QA throughout that process to make sure that the fix is taking, that it's working, that there's no anomaly or unknown issue. So pretty impressive, right?
It's one of those things too that it's so atypical. I saw someone today, I forget, it might have been on Reddit, but they basically said, so you're telling me they're going to go through and open every single box and do this update? Yeah, right. And on its face, I'm like, yeah, I'd be second guessing that too. That sounds not at all like what's gonna actually happen. But I knew what you told me, and so I had to stick with it. So it's pretty incredible to me that they're going to that extent, and that you're going to that extent to make this right. Now, I do want to ask a question. I think it was from the Garage Gamer here in our chat,
Okay.
and I think it's a fair one. And I've seen this a lot. And I know you can't answer all of this necessarily. Obviously, you don't work for Basic Fun. You are obviously sort of at a different, kind of level here. But the question is basically just, why weren't some of these things found beforehand? Why wasn't a proper Q&A done? Not just, the roster issue is one thing. We all know about the licensing issues. But there have been reports sporadically of other, bugs and things here and there that people are just kind of like, what happened? So,
Yeah.
What happened?
I wish I could give a direct answer on that. The truth is, I don't know why. I know that this is a new product line for Basic Fun. They've done smaller handheld things. That they've done all sorts of toys and products in the space. This is their first time doing a full arcade. I do give them a bit of grace for that. They can't. Everyone thinks that these are just exactly like what an arcade 1-up was. They aren't. They did have to do some redesigning. There was quite a bit of work that went into that. So I'm not going to guess what happened, but what I would say is it's okay to kind of make a mistake, right? I understand when there are times where we might not perform exactly the way we want to. Obviously, they're learning from these. All of the conversations that I'm having with them have been about how they're improving and what we're doing moving forward. So I have full confidence in the brand moving forward. But when we talk about these things, like I said, none of us are perfect, right? Like we all kind of miss an execution from time to time. So like a perfect example of this, and like there have been some different grumblings that came out, and one of them, which was a really great call out, I thought was people were upset that the counter arcade had advertised a lit marquee. And I saw all sorts of comments. Oh, Basic Fun's false advertising. They're overselling the product. They're saying it has features that it doesn't have. And the honest truth, and I hate to have to say it, but that was actually my fault. Like me, not me, Spreetail, but me actually personally. I had a bunch of communications going back and forth with my content team, and one of them had mentioned like, hey, we don't for the lit marquee, we don't have an icon that looks exactly like the counter arcade. Like, should we just create that? And I was going through multiple things, and yeah, go ahead and do that. And so like I authorized this custom content creation that was off of the very specific content that Basic Fun had provided me. And I thought I was doing the right thing at the time, but then I started seeing the reviews. I was like, did I miss something? So then I'm going through, and I went through every single piece of documentation that Basic Fun had provided me. And at no point was I ever told, oh, there's a lit marquee on the counter arcade. So like that was actually my fault. So if there's anybody in the chat or anybody on the stream right now or someone watching this later who bought that thinking like, saw that infographic, I'm sorry. That was my fault. I made that mistake. And my commitment is to really tighten that up moving forward. But I think that you learn from those mistakes and you do better. And I think we're going to get there. There's been really good feedback on some of this stuff. I think one of the easiest ones for me is like coin doors and speaker grills, right? I think these are things that we say like, hey, you look at the machine, you see these like these very basic features on there. That's an easy fix, right? So like I've given that feedback to the brand. I hope they take it. We'll see what happens, but they've seemed open to it, so I'm excited about that. But it is good to see just that they're going about the fixes right now.
Well, it is, yeah, and maybe we can. Again, I know you can't like fully speak for them, but I know I've had some conversations with folks over there about some of those things. Hopefully, for the future, one of those things that comes up a lot and is probably particularly relevant now is Wi-Fi, because how much easier would it be to just push an update over Wi-Fi than everything that you're going through now? And I know the sort of counterpoint to that is, hey, everything costs money. When we're looking at all of the tariffs and the inflation and everything else, and I think to some degree consumers get that. I think the pushback from the community would be we're getting what seems to be a comparable-ish product from one of your competitors that has things like a coin door, like speaker grills, like Wi-Fi for a comparable price. Why can't you guys do that? And again, I know you can't speak for Basic Fun per se, but what's your take on kind of where we are with some of those features? Where might we be headed with that kind of stuff?
So I can't say what the final direction will be because I'm not 100% sure it's even been decided. But behind the scenes, we're having that same conversation. There's a conversation of, do you use the Wi-Fi? What's the purpose of the Wi-Fi? Is the Wi-Fi for updates? Is the Wi-Fi for leaderboards? Is it for gaming with that other guy who's playing on the other side of the country? And from a data standpoint, I think what everyone has seen, and Paul, I think you've done some polls on it as well. That Wi-Fi for that wasn't actually planned. I'm surprised.
It wasn't, but you and I have talked about it. We've talked about it, and I said, hey, I've done all these surveys on Reddit. I'm not totally useless here.
Yeah.
So, this is one that and again, all these surveys that we do, they're not. I understand they're not statistically relevant in the sense that we have a large enough sample set that you can draw any firm conclusions, but it can give you an indication of people that are interested enough to respond, that are passionate enough to respond. How do they feel? And I was shocked. This is a pretty telling, example of the fact that people are not necessarily in it for the online competitive play. Now, I don't want to take anything away from the people that are very passionate about that. There is a community. It might be relatively small, but there are people that are totally into it. I get it. Uh, this just might not be sort of, the product that gets that for you. There might be other ones in the market that let you do that. But I think when you need to talk about all the cost considerations, people would love to be able to update their cabinets, but I don't think they'd be willing to pay more money for that like online competitive kind of thing. And that to me is what surveys like this, tend to show.
I I think there's like three different ways to look at it. One, and like just as a partner with any brand I'd work with, I would always challenge any brand, whether it's Basic Fun, Iconic Arcade, Wonderland Amusements. How do you release a product that isn't going to need an update? Right, like that would like to me that would be where the bar of excellence is. Is that like how do we get as close to knocking it out of the park 100% of the time as possible? That said, afterwards, there will be mistakes from time to time. So I think the discussion is sort of like, what is the best way to do that? Do we want to protect the price point as much as possible and not have the Wi-Fi? Would people rather have the Wi-Fi so those updates are quick, or would you rather a USB cord and a USB and dongle are included with the machine that you can quickly download an update and put it on, but you don't have to pay for that additional feature, that additional programming and things like that for something that you don't want to use very often. So
Yeah.
it is an ongoing conversation, and I think people are listening, and it'll I'll be curious to see what direction all the brands end up going for that.
Yeah, I will too. And again, I think if you're at a higher price point, you tend to expect more features. And I do expect that there will be other players in the space that might cater more toward that offering. At the same time, I feel like just Wi-Fi in general is probably going to be a benefit both to the customer and ultimately to the manufacturer, so that when things do come up, they can push an update, and it's not going to be, the kind of thing that you're going through now, frankly, which is, pretty tough. I mean, you just outlined everything that you guys went through, so I feel like nobody wants to relive that. So I'm hopeful for that in the future, along with some other things like the coin doors. But I know that remains to be seen. While we're on the topic of that, one other thing that's come up a fair amount, at least in early reviews, was the deck and the lack of what we call a deck protector. Which, for those in the space who might be newer, might not remember, when Arcade 1UP first came out with their product in 2018. The graphic on the control deck, basically, in the in-store samples that they put out there at the Walmarts, of the world, they were taking a beating pretty quickly. The art was rubbing off, it was all scratched up, and it looked really bad. And then people got these in their homes and started to have the same kind of things happen. Maybe not to the same extent, but they were getting, smeared and smudged and just kind of not great. So they very quickly started sending out at their cost these deck protectors that's the clear plexi that you've seen. And that was not an intentional design up front. That was oops, we effed up and didn't think about this. What do we do? And
Band-aid.
it was a total Band-Aid. It cost them a lot of money shipping the whole thing. But then ever since then, every product they've come out with, except for some of the newer ones, has had a deck protector for the exact same reason. It just became like this de facto thing. So now people are expecting to see that, with the assumption that if it's not there, there's going to be a lot of wear and tear on the deck. And I know Basic Fun has a perspective on that, and obviously we'll talk more about Iconic later, but they have their own solution as well. So I want you to just speak to that for a minute. I'm going to put on screen here something I saw on the Basic Fun support page for Arcade Classics today that also speaks to this. But I know you've run across this as well before.
Yeah. So I think you kind of you pretty well covered it, but the idea, and I've talked to Basic Fun just to confirm that this is correct, is that the finish that is on there is supposed to have that smudge protectant on top of it. That you should be able to play these without a deck protector, still have the vibrant colors and everything else, and not have to worry about that. So the deck protector is essentially pointless in this case. So I think that's kind of their response to that. We did see quite a few people comment in reviews or on different social media. So that was actually something we added into the listings, just so people knew, like, you're not missing a feature. It's just the thing that you want isn't necessary. So that's why it's not there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, fair enough. I think we'll just see in the future, how these products do. I mean, that'll that'll be the ultimate test, once they're out there in people's homes and are playing with them for a while and their kids are doing whatever. The funny thing, you and I have talked about this in original arcades. Obviously, that plexi cover was not a thing. So
Right.
for those of us who value authenticity, that plexi cover was never something that we would have wanted to begin with, and they do get scratched on their own. Anyone who's tried to clean it and have used anything that might be like a wood pulp based product, i.e. a paper towel, knows that they scratch. And if you tighten the screws too easily, they crack. There's all kinds of things that are not great about deck protectors to begin with. So if we can avoid them and have a quality, printed graphic, I think we're all better off in the end, because that's what they had in the original arcades. So that's where my default always goes. So anyway, I think we beat that horse to death.
Yep, I think we talked about the iconic piece, the basic fun piece. I think the long story is, we're all kind of learning together and we're getting better. But I think that one of the biggest pieces of feedback I've heard, especially for people who've done pre-orders on the iconic arcades, was that people would be kind of tired about just seeing like renders, right? Like you tell when it's a computer render, people are like, is this thing real? Is this thing alive and in nature? So that's actually something that I've been kind of hounding the brand about lately. I'm like, hey guys, like, people are really starting to clamor at me. Do you have some way to get me video from the factory? Do you have a way to show me that this product is alive, that it is physically available in the universe? And just a couple days ago, they finally came through. So I think Paul, I sent you a download here, but if you want to pull that up, what we were happy enough to receive was this actual assembly video of the Street Fighter World Warrior getting put together in the factory. So show the people, man. This thing it's real, it's alive, and you're going to see it, the first one off the production line right here.
I'm just going to draw it out as long as possible.
Okay, no, absolutely. How are the kids doing, Paul? How's that?
Now, actually, I do have it queued up, but there's a couple of things I want people to pay attention to, because some of this stuff goes by quickly, and we can pause this as we talk about it. But I had one of the folks from, I'll say, behind the scenes doing work with Iconic, and no, it was not John. Hello, John. It was not him, but somebody else that works with John. Messaged me and basically was talking about the fact that there's a lot less plastic in this design than we might be used to seeing. Like, for instance, under the control deck and some things inside, this is generally speaking going to be a heftier feeling, more, I'll say, wood, solidly built kind of product. So as we're watching this, that's something that kind of jumped out to me. A lot of the assembly and all that is fairly, what we're used to seeing. But the materials, I think, is going to be one of those things that makes it a little bit different. But I'll just let it roll, and we'll take it from there.
All right, well, you're killing me. Let's see this thing.
All right.
Beautiful. It's live. It's real. We don't have to keep watching it, but that was awesome.
I think just seeing proof of life,
Yeah.
that's that's what a lot of folks wanted. I don't know if you speak at all to what this particular assembled unit sort of represents. I know there's talk about, there's in manufacturing such a thing as a golden sample. There's also sometimes production line samples that you pull off randomly, for quality. Do you have any idea where this fits in the grand scheme of things in terms of their production?
Yeah, so from my understanding, this was like one of the first test run off the line, and kind of the way I'm looking at that, and I think I had sent you some other pictures, but you'll notice on here that this video, the model doesn't contain the yellow trim that everyone's
That's
expecting
right.
to see around it, whereas the actual that got muted there. So I think that piece kind of shows that this is sort of like a test run. But to me, as someone who has been trying to get these things, live and purchased for the better part of a year, seeing an actual production model, something coming to life, was just a really cool moment. So hopefully, if there's, I've been getting emails from pre-order folks for months now. Hey, is there an update? Hey, is this thing real? Is it actually happening? So I think seeing an actual video coming off the line is a pretty incredible thing.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, I wouldn't mind just kind of playing through it again. We'll maybe pause it here as we go, to see if we can point out anything that's unique, or maybe obviously we haven't seen a lot of it before, but anything of a particular note. One thing that you and I have talked about and that people may call out, so I'll just mention it right away. Obviously, the way Basic Fun is constructing their cabinets now, they're using those cam locks, which I think is absolutely fantastic because it keeps the sides cleaner. You're not having all the holes obviously and things like that. Now, at the same time, the actual sort of, I'll say, rigidity of the cabinet, the kind of, how solid it is. You mentioned to me just like the length of the screws. This does not have cam locks, but but it's solid, and it's using decently sized hardware. So I assume that's a design choice.
I'm assuming that's why they did it. Seeing the additional size and how bulky this item is, when it's fully assembled, I'm actually kind of glad to see that they went with the full length screws. I think that is going to make it a little bit more supported. And if you are in a situation where you're having to move those arcades around to kind of shuffle or get to a power supply or whatever the case might be, I think it was a good choice. It looks like it's going to be pretty solid. So. I think the part that I was most interested in, I think you have a picture of that, was actually the finish that they'd used on the control board. And I know that was something that you had kind of sent out previously, or that had been shared a little bit. But if there's anyone on the stream who hadn't seen it, what they're doing a little bit different on this one is it's actually kind of like that matte, so a bit of a texture finish on it, which I thought kind of adds a little bit of a luxury feel compared to the high gloss. So I'm not sure if you had that, but there was like a zoomed in version if you have it.
Yeah, I don't have it handy, but I'll go to that part in the video. It is something that John and I have talked about. He sent me pictures earlier on, and we were kind of looking at the detail of that. Not just in the graphic, but obviously the texture. And it's almost one of those like muscle memory things where there was a certain feel to the original arcade games. When you were in an arcade, you sat your hands and your wrists on that control deck. There's just a certain feel to it. Almost can't put that into words, and I don't want to over romanticize it, but it's one of those small details that I think just connects you to that experience in just a tiniest way that it's going to be a really good thing. So, I saw one comment about like, oh, the graphics aren't as sharp or whatever. They're not, but I would argue that in the original arcade, games that were used as a reference, that's just a byproduct of that style of printing. And I think, when you're playing, you're not looking down at your hands, but you are feeling the deck, with your hands, with your wrists, side of your hand. So I think that's going to be more important than obviously just the durability overall. And here we're actually, I'm going to go back just a little bit. We're getting, if I can here, we're getting a little bit of an inside look at the cabinet here that we haven't seen before. I think I went back too far. But, looking at the Raspberry Pi that's inside, the way the monitor is mounting, obviously it's a Lenovo or Medion monitor, and we've seen some specs about that recently. Yeah, it's just flying by. I'm not pausing very well, but yeah, you can see there. There's more wood hardware. I think we're seeing the back of the control deck there, which obviously is using that same kind of like relatively thick MDF. And not just a plastic box that we're used to seeing, which I think is kind of cool. Again, it's it's going to make the thing feel, I think, just all that more solid and weighty without being like hugely heavy like an original arcade, but still more solid, more grounded, and I think all that just impacts how it feels overall. So I was pleased to see that. Let me just see here. I don't know if I can pause it. Yeah, there's a little bit of how the monitor mounts there. You can see that nice big wooden bracket in the back, and it looks like a one of their fairly standard monitors, which would make sense from Lenovo. Obviously, all the connectors. There's the Pi right there. It's got a cooling fan on it, which you would expect. Got your standard hookups. That's probably the encoder board or just okay. And then he's putting on obviously the bat tops and things. And we saw the two speakers there at the top. I did see for the marquee, there was a diffuser panel at the top, which again is sort of one of those lesson learned kind of things from, I think, John's experience in the past. So that looked pretty good. And of course, this is in the light of whatever, a factory, but you can still kind of see the lit marquee there. Looks pretty decent. Obviously it's not, not in a home environment, but it looks pretty evenly lit to me. Yeah, just trying to see if there's anything else worth pointing out. In the front of the control panel, I don't know if you could see it, but there was a spot there where I believe it's going to be an HDMI port, I think, on the front. It's a little hard to see the controls on top. Obviously, you can see the lit coin door. So all things that were, maybe expected, but it's just nice to see it in a, sort of final production version.
Well, and speaking of final production, I think the part that a lot of people have been concerned about is like, hey, is this thing still shipping in time for Christmas? Do we still get product in December? And the answer is still yes. So that's been a commitment from the brand that they haven't faltered on. We've been reviewing factory, sort of flow plans and operationally how to make sure that that's happening. And that's a commitment that they made. And I'm going to hold them to it, right? Like I've told the others, there's a really big difference between like, hey, we have to move a shipment a couple months or something, when you're talking about fall or over the summer, and saying something's going to be here before Christmas. Like, don't be the Grinch, right? You got to get it out. So, I've still got full confidence on that. Obviously, I would have loved for these to have been launched a few months ago. So, lessons learned on production and the challenges there. But I think it's going to be a good product that will be well received. And there's been a lot of work and a lot of rework and input made to it. So very excited just to see how this thing turns out. And I think people are going to love it.
Yeah, no, I mean, no doubt. We've talked about a lot of this behind the scenes, and I know that at least some of the challenges that the team has experienced, a lot of which people are never going to know. It's just one of those things that you can't necessarily always share every last little detail about what's happening with a company or its products. But I think at the end of the day, the product's going to speak for itself, and maybe we can give some hints later as to what's coming. But I think there's a really sort of interesting, outlook for next year, even pretty early on in the year. I think we're going to not have to wait until next Christmas before we see more from a lot of these companies. You and I have talked about maybe a shift in strategy from how Arcade 1-Up would maybe do everything within like a 3-month period, and that would pretty much be it for the year. And it always seemed kind of silly to me because there are other times in the year when people have money to spend. Sometimes it's after the holidays, you've got Christmas money, or maybe it's around tax time and you're getting a refund. Maybe it's a birthday, maybe it's, whatever. It's just the middle of summer and you're bored and you want to do something. So we've had other products to sort of, I think there are other things that have come out that cost a lot of money or that were announced at least that people have, pre-ordered or bought, whether it's pinball or whatever. And, more power to them. But I think part of that is just the gap that existed between product releases. So I'm excited for, I think, what's going to be a shift next year and maybe beyond. Can you talk to that a little bit, and just in terms of, at least generalities in terms of where that's headed?
Yeah, a little bit. So that's actually from a buying standpoint been one of my challenges. Is this is a category that's always just been forced into that Q4 holiday sort of time period, and so that it's always been a chicken or the egg. Which one came first, right? Like, can I sell these in July? And my theory has always been yes, we can sell them in July if someone launches something in July. Uh, so what I'm excited about is you've alluded to some of them, but we know that Star Wars is going to be coming out from Basic Fun. That's going to be a little bit later in the year. That's going to be landing in December compared to, in Q1. We know that Wonderland Amusements has their pinball machine that's going to be coming out early next year. We have Iconic Arcades already talked about Double Dragon, being something that is coming out sometime in the next year. So I think when I'm looking at the schedule of what's going to be happening, I actually see a really, really active time from now until July. And then if that's not enough, I think people are still talking about it. There's a SpongeBob claw machine that's out too. If you've got that hole in your home arcade and you're like, man, if I had a SpongeBob claw machine, I think there's someone talking about it online on 15 other channels right now.
I mean, I can't laugh too much of that about that because I've got the first gen, whatever you want to call it, claw machine sitting over here in the corner behind me, and my kids love it. It was the best Christmas morning ever. They literally said, "This is the best Christmas ever." I mean, it wasn't for me. It was one of those things that's like I'm not going to sit here and like
Look,
competitively
quick, go to
like.
our affiliate links. We have a link to the claw machine
Yeah.
right now for $59.99 on this site only. Paul, you dang shill.
I
Come
missed
on.
I've missed every opportunity to make money over the last 7 years. I could have linked
Absolutely.
I could have linked every Reddit post to a product. Instead, I spent time linking it out to, every other content provider on earth. But that's great, and more power to them. But seriously, the claw machine was a hit, and it's great. It's a family thing. I think this one's going to be a winner too. It always is interesting to me seeing what the club stores end up getting, because there's always this talk and this mystery about like, well, what are they gonna get? It's not revealed because that's just how they operate. So you don't really know until it just shows up in the store. And then it's like, well, are any of the new players going to be at a club store? And I competition wise for me, I wish there was. I wish we would be seeing the Supreme cabinets. We're not, but we're seeing SpongeBob.
Dude, the holidays are saved, man. I'm gonna sleep better tonight knowing that. I think the big box stores, it's kind of an interesting thing because ahead of this, there seemed to be a lot of concern, like, oh man, like I hope Paul and Kevin don't like spill any industry secrets or like void some licensor agreement or something. But everyone wants to know like what's Sam's Club doing, what's Costco doing, which is like the most egregious, like to spill like what's Costco's strategy, for Q4. Like that would be far more egregious than saying like, hey, I think someone's working on this title over here. So
Seriously.
it cracks me up so much, but. I don't have any relationship at all with the Costco's. with the Sam's Clubs, those kind of things. The amount that they import, it just really wouldn't make sense for me to be involved. There'd be no value add. They're gonna bring in so many containers of a product like this beautiful claw machine. So there's no reason for me to get involved there.
No, and I think it's great. In the past we saw the Pac-Man XL do some pretty crazy numbers there, and Pac-Man XL is at least in some Canadian Costco stores, which surprised me. I didn't know they were going to be doing that again. I don't know if it's a regional thing or what, but I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. My understanding, though, just in a general sense, and I don't have a direct connection to those club stores either. Ironically, I used to. I actually worked with some people that would go visit these buyers, but I was doing it for a whole different product category. And I wish I had those contacts, but I don't anymore. But my understanding is the club stores are still wanting more of this type of product. They're still very interested in the home arcade space and the home arcade product in general. So I feel like that indicates it's still a healthy space. There's still demand. They're still seeing people buying it. So, there's been chatter over the last couple of years about post-COVID home arcade is dead. Why would companies be entering the space if it was a dying market? I mean, for better or worse, you've still got Arcade One Up hanging on. You've got Basic Fun. You've got Iconic. You've got Unico doing some stuff in the background. You've got At Games. I mean, that doesn't indicate to me that there's no market. I feel
There's
like it's
There's
just there.
absolutely a market. I think there's there's always like the clickbait, like this is dead, that's dead. The
Sure.
gaming is dead. Like something's apparently always dying. But people are continuously buying these things. Obviously, people are still engaged in the conversation. People are interested. They want to know more. So. No, it's absolutely not dead. If anything, I think it's getting to a much more healthy space where for the first time, like we're really seeing all those different form factors depending on what your budget is, right? So if you want to go with a countercade or a partycade size, for a lower price point, you could do that. If you want the deluxe or the ultra size, that's an option. And then iconic arcade, we know at least. I don't know what Basic Fun's going to do with the larger size, but iconic arcade's coming in with the XTs, and they look huge. They look as close to a full size arcade as anything I've seen available in the home space. So I think it's exciting to have the options, and give people something to argue about. Like it keeps it lively, it keeps it exciting. So
Yeah, for
just
sure.
happy to be a part.
I think next, we've said this a lot, and I've said it before. Like, hey, next year is going to be great. Next year is going to be the year of XL or whatever. Promises made, promises not kept. Not just by me, but by the people behind the scenes making the decisions. But I honestly think, from the things that you and I have talked about and that I've heard elsewhere, it's going to be a good year. I think we're going to see stuff we've never seen before. I think we're going to see more accessibility in terms of being able to get things at different times of the year, different price points, different, I'll say, like levels of quality. So I feel like it's a good time to be in the space. Like even if you're just entering the space, there's something there for you. And I know that's kind of Basic Fun's model is, we want something for everybody. So from the smaller sort of, handheld to a counter size piece, moving up to a more ultra or deluxe size, and then the whole way up to the Supremes that we're going to see early next year. I mean, that's fantastic. That's exactly what you want is something for everybody. I've been a huge fan of XLs, but I've never said there shouldn't be anything smaller because I want there to be a gateway for people to get into the hobby. And then if they want, move up. I want those options to be there for people that are, more invested, more serious, whatever. So I'm excited about what's happening, now, but especially what's happening, towards first, second quarter of next year. So I did want to leave some room, some time, if you're okay with it, Kevin, to maybe
Yeah.
just take a look at the chat, maybe sort of open it up to questions. Obviously, we can't answer everything, whether we know the answers or not. But I'd be interested in going through. I don't know if you have the ability to highlight any of those, Kevin. If not, I'll highlight ones that you might want to talk about. And if anybody in the chat has a specific question that you would like to have us try to answer as best as we're able to, now's the time.
Yeah, if you want to highlight stuff.
I can do that. Yeah. And I saw one. I saw one. I'll just go right for it with Console Fanboy. I don't want you to feel ignored. I have heard your pleas, and I agree with your pleas for Mortal Kombat. I've heard those for years. I am a huge Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 fan. Maybe not so much MK4, but UMK3. I am all over, and I've not had the opportunity to add that to my collection either. So I'm with you. And I can't say that there's a Mortal Kombat on the horizon, unfortunately, that I've heard. I think your best bet would be to keep talking about it. Maybe hope that I'll say that maybe the license ends up being acquired by someone else at some point that has a desire to do that. To me, an MKXL is money on the table. I don't understand why that's not being produced. Do you feel the same way, Kevin?
As the person who has quite literally put the money on the table and specifically
Yeah.
requested that, yeah, yes, like I agree. I think there's an opportunity there. There is obviously there's licensing questions. There's all those sorts of deals. So we have to see uh, who's going to have the option to do such a thing. But there are a few that are on my hit list, and to me, the idea that we haven't had one in that, whether you want to call it the supreme size or the XL size or whatever the case, to me that's a travesty, right? Sometimes the market screams at you, like sometimes you have to look for the data, and then sometimes it's like it's smashing you in the face and like, hey, you really need to do this. So it's on my list. It's one I've asked for. So I hope that of the multiple people that I'm talking to that someone is able to bring it to life. But so far I can't say that it's come to fruition. But we're gonna keep fighting for that one. So hopefully sooner rather than later.
I hope so too.
Hey, there's one from good old Mike Hawk Hertz that I wanted to. I don't know if I can actually highlight
I think
these
I got it here. Let's see.
because this was a good question. Mike here, I'm not going to say your whole name again because pause. What is Kevin's advice for those like me that purchased the counter WrestleFest before a coupon was offered? Should we return it and repurchase, or is there a way to get a coupon applied? So if you, and I've already done this for multiple people, if you purchased any of these before the coupon went live, you were super excited, you jumped in. The intention wasn't for you to purchase it before the coupon. There was just a lag. I will absolutely honor the coupon for you if that was, if you just happen to be in the first hour or two of purchase. I don't know, Paul, you know how to do the computer stuff more so than me. You can share my Spreetail email address, which is kevin.roar@spreetail.com. If you email me and say like, hey, I bought this thing and 15 minutes later, coupon went live. Dude, I'll get you your money. I'll get that coupon applied. I'll make sure you're taken care of. So that'll be my personal email address.
And I think and that's a tricky sort of situation too with returns and or credits and refunds, and sometimes you're trying to do the math to make it right, and it doesn't.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it works out. You had to do that even for me a while back with Iconic. Some stuff happened early on. I know you've had to do stuff like that more recently. It's these are humans doing all of this. So sometimes the responses aren't as instant as a computer. Sometimes things are not perfect. I've had to, have some email conversations back and forth, but things always got addressed. But again, it's a human business, at least for some of this stuff.
Well, and at the end of the day, all this whole entire category for Spreetail, it all falls under me. If you purchased an arcade for any reason, is having some sort of an issue that you're not happy about, or you have a pre-order, you wonder what's going on, whatever the case might be, I've shared my email address publicly before. I have answered hundreds and hundreds of emails, especially with the Iconic Arcade, but also with the Basic Fun launch. A bunch of people are like, "Oh, come on, man! I just missed out on $100." Like, I got you, dude. Don't worry about that. The value of the community, like being able to jump in and like adopt these titles so quickly, I respect that. I do place a value on that, because that's where we're going to get that feedback. That's where we're going to know where can we improve, how do we make this product better, how do we improve these brands long term. So I want to make sure you guys are taken care of. And that's why I share my email. That's my email. It's not a team email. It's not a group of people who get it. That goes straight to me. It comes straight to my phone, and you get a response directly from me. So, I want to make sure all you guys are taken care of, because at the end of the day, this is the engine that drives the business forward. That makes it so if these companies are successful, that is new titles in the future. So I want to make sure that you guys are happy, and that you're having a good experience. And that's honestly why we called this channel Arcade Insiders. Paul and I are not the insiders here. Everybody who participates in the conversation, everybody who is now walking away with, "Hey, I didn't know that that's what happened. This is the situation. I know a little bit more." Like, everybody in the room right now is the Arcade Insider. So that was really the purpose of the channel.
Yep.
And I hope that long term you guys get value, and that's going to be our goal for you.
Yeah, and that has been the idea, since we started talking about this. It was just that, we've heard, and I've certainly heard and been part of the idea that there's not enough communication, between the community and the companies, and sometimes it's tough. We saw what happened with Arcade One Up. That didn't always go well. It's tricky, and our our community has a lot of tough conversations, and sometimes that doesn't always work out well from a brand communication standpoint for companies. So it's a touchy thing. It's a tricky thing. We don't always make it easy, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. So I think what we're trying to do, Kevin, is sort of bridge that gap. Like you said, the idea of the insiders is we can all become these sort of insiders to a certain degree by participating in this conversation. And I know that just sounds like, that's nice marketing speak, but that's not coming from a marketing team. That's coming from us trying to bridge the gap. I have, no monetary investment in this. You obviously are working for Spreetail, but it benefits you to communicate with real fans so that you know what's important, you know what needs to change, you know what's going to do well, you know what's not. So yes, it benefits you, but it benefits us by default. So to me, it's a win-win to do this kind of thing. I know, obviously there are folks that will say, "Oh, we're shilling for this," or whatever. I've been a shill for every company in this space at one time or another, according to someone. So
especially claw machines, Paul. I had respect for you.
I'm a big claw machine advocate. That's no, my kids certainly are.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I'm an XL shill. I am a shill for anything that gets us closer to, I'll say, the nostalgia that I have as a kid. And I think that's what gets some of us so riled up is when we see things that are, I'll say, veering off course. It's almost like we all have this standard of what we remember from our childhoods, and it's like you're effing with our childhood. Like, don't mess with our childhood,
That's right. That's right.
It's sort of like, when they bring out the reissues of like G.I. Joe or Transformers or whatever, and you're like, no, I don't remember it that way. That wasn't the G1 Transformer that I remember. Give it to me this way. And I get that, and I'm all for that. So that's my motivation for doing this and having these direct conversations. It's out of selfishness because I want that in my own arcade. I have a small space. I can only put 4 or 5 or 6 units in here, so I want them to be good, and that's what drives my passion to do this. And then I hear other people that are similarly passionate, and I want to have those communications. So so it's exciting to do this. It's exciting to have that conversation. We're planning to do this for as long as we can make a go of it, every week at, I'll say, Thursday at 8 o'clock until for some reason that needs in. I think you're on board with that, right, Kevin?
Yep. Yeah, that's the plan. There should constantly be some sort of update or news info. I think what we want is we just want to be able to provide people a source of truth based on what. If you're interested in that kind of thing, tune in again, and we'll hopefully give you another tidbit or something you didn't know before you came in the first time.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we'll look forward to seeing everyone again next week. If we have any teasers before the show, we'll share those. But everything happen, there's so much that happens during a week. I couldn't have necessarily even predicted what the first show was going to be about. And we were kind of like, well, let's talk about this or this. And then the week changes and it's like, here we are, whatever, 15 minutes before showtime, like, hey, we got this new thing. So it's,
Yeah, exactly.
it's probably going to change again next week. And there'll be a lot probably that happens between now and then. So can't wait.
Beautiful. All right. Well, hey, everyone, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we get to see you again soon.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.